Okay. Hello and welcome to Self-Image Love Podcast. I am so excited to have my amazing guest, Lydia Hatton.
Hatton.
Hatton. Amazing. So, a little bit about Lydia. Lydia is a therapist with an MBA. She is a certified hypnotherapist and a rapid transformation therapist, specializing in a new protocol devised to swiftly move people to the root cause of their limited beliefs. Lydia's career has spanned corporate roles in media at NBC in New York and at Continental Cablevision in Boston, to work in startups on the East Coast and in Michigan. Lydia grew up with five brothers, lived in France, and has climbed 20,000 feet in Russia. That's amazing. She has an undergraduate degree from Columbia University in New York and an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Her experiences in high pressure and challenging situations led her to study the power of the mind. She now seeks to help and inspire others how to reach beyond their perceived limits. Oh, this is amazing, Lydia. Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
I'm just very excited to be here, Marcy. I think what you're doing is wonderful. Thank you. I think there's a huge wave underway of people really coming to understand the power of their mind. And I know that you and I are at the forefront of it all, working along with Marissa Peer, who started Rapid Transformational Therapy, and a lot of other amazing individuals out here, bringing us to a new level to really
Yeah,
understand that we're much more powerful than
yeah,
we're consciously aware of. So thank you for inviting me.
of course. And I'm so excited as well. I love the whole fact about empowering women, especially like in the corporate world. So,
Mhm.
so Lydia, tell us, how do you help women in the corporate world?
Well, I am working with my RTT practice to focus on women who are in the corporate world or in high pressured work environments that are beginning to feel their limits and or want to be able to accelerate their careers, and yet find they have these blocks, be it either a fear of speaking at meetings or an inability to say no. And there are these mental habits that really are exhausting, that actually are hangovers from the way that we were programmed as children, as little girls and whatnot. And we can come to what I call the squeeze when you're in the corporate world, where you're at manager or above and you have a very promising career, but you're hitting the limits. And I learned through my own experience that by working with the subconscious mind, you can identify the source of those blocks and then set women free. So my mission really is to work with women to help them be better leaders. As far as I'm concerned, we need a lot more women on the planet in leadership roles. We know there are a lot of reasons why that isn't happening, but I think we're really starting to pick up steam relative to doing a lot of research around why women aren't promoted, why they aren't speaking up, what men hear, how women need to potentially change the way they think and what they believe about themselves. I think a lot of change is going to happen with that. And so when I came upon RTT, I had been kind of struggling with these patterns that kept repeating in my life, and be it either at work or in my personal relationships. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So when I, started learning more about rapid transformational therapy and being able to access the subconscious mind and identify those patterns, I decided to check it out, and it changed my life. I, within 4 sessions, was able to identify the root patterns from my childhood that were at the boardroom table with me. I just saw it immediately, but it took this incredible gift of being able to get into the subconscious. And so in rapid transformational therapy, because you're a practitioner or therapist as well, Marcy, we know that hypnotherapy is really, it's kind of a little bit of a secret weapon right now in terms of unleashing people's power, because when you can really get to the root cause, you are accessing the subconscious mind. And when you ask the subconscious mind to go to the root, the cause, the reason for this fear of speaking in business meetings, bam, it will go right to it.
Right.
And then you can work with that. So again, I feel like this is the advent of a new frontier to really help women build their confidence, to lose their fear of speaking, and to really be very comfortable in their own authenticity. And with that comes a greater sense of calm, and I think really will engender a lot more favorability as they're climbing the ladder, when they really are 100% whole, as they're going along the route.
Exactly. And I love that, because I know that from experience, you could only learn and have a certain understanding consciously. Like, for example, like we all want to speak up, right? We all want to let our voice be heard. But when it comes to the actual right there and then, what happens to us, right? Like our nervous system, like the shutting down and all these things that creep up on us. And it's kind of like, and I speaking from my experience, it's like, I know this and I want this, but why am I not acting the way that I want to, right? And that goes along with the programming.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I liken it to when you were sitting in the boardroom, and I was the only female in boardrooms for a while. I had no problem, because I grew up with 5 brothers, and I was very comfortable, in those environments. But when it came to making my point in a meeting or speaking up, I, of course, would be like most women, I'd be over prepared. I'd have all sorts of notes and the whole thing. And then I'd be like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then somebody else would make my point, or I would say something, but I wouldn't say it properly. And then somebody would come in behind me and say it in a different manner. And, boom, I would, I think we've all been there. But when I was going through working with other students as we were learning and trying to figure out, what this was about, what was the root, the cause, the pattern, I kept going back to scenes, and we'll explain what the scenes are when we talk about, how you work with rapid transformational therapy. But I kept going back to scenes where I'm like 4 years old at the dining room table with with like 5 brothers, 2 friends, my grandmother at one end, my, parents at either end, and it is just bedlam.
Yeah.
And in that particular situation, I had formed a belief about myself and my voice and my worth and my self-worth and my ability to be comfortable being seen. Because certainly as the only girl, I got teased relentlessly. But then whenever I would say anything, everybody would make fun of me. Yeah. I had a somatic memory in my body of everybody making fun of me. And it was just like,
yeah.
So it was that exact same trigger when I'd be sitting in the boardroom. These are the types of beliefs and memories. And so, as we know, in rapid transformational therapy, you're going back to scenes that are the root, the cause, the reason of your issue, many of which are formed between the ages of 0 and 7. But when I'm working with women, a lot of it happened in preteen. So I say 0 to 13. And you'll go back to these particular childhood scenes. And I tell people that I'm working with, I liken it to like, just pretend you're that 5-year-old in that little cubby car pedaling along with your feet. That 5-year-old is driving your life right now, still, because, similar to the way the sky is blue, that's one of the rules of development in the human mind. And, that's just one of these things that we would consider a limiting belief.
Yeah.
But that was made with the mind of a child. And that is the art and the gift of this work, is we can identify those beliefs, but then we can go in and understand them, and then we can unwind them, let them go, and then reframe them and put somebody on a completely new path. And to me, it's just so exciting. I've had outstanding results working with women that, certainly had challenges. We all do when we're growing up, and really, really moving almost like mountains for them, in terms of kind of them being free from a lot of the stuff that was holding them back.
Yeah, exactly. And that was explained so beautifully, because, it's like sometimes you could prepare yourself so much, like you mentioned, but then when the actual situation is arising, it's like you mentioned, there's like all kinds of things going on, like, remembering like the past from our childhood, that trigger, and that just limits us, from being the leader that we want to be, right?
Yeah.
Where in doing this therapy, I have felt that it just comes naturally. Like I don't have to force anything. It's just like, I'm like, wait, I said that? What?
Yeah.
You know?
It's very intuitive. And you and I worked together, and I was blown away by how you just, you're open to that intuitive sense, and what questions to ask, because we are able to connect with each other, at a particular level, and both with our own kind of life experience, but just, kind of common awareness of things that can happen to get in your way. We're able to, openly ask questions,
Right.
and the client can say, no, that I don't believe that. It's really an open and very relaxed discussion when, in RTT, you're really more in a trance state, or as we say in the induction, it's a sleep of the nervous system, but you're wide awake. I mean, you're really in there, and very aware of what's going on. But it really is something too, where I think teaching women to trust their own intuition more so than ever before is also going to be a big key. Getting women to trust themselves is also part of the puzzle when it comes to kind of understanding that it's okay to have feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings are actually your guidance system. They are energy in motion. Anyone who stuffs their feelings is going to get stuck or potentially even physically ill. So, again, I think it's really, as women come to both trust themselves, their experiences, and their voice, they're going to trust their authenticity, and then they're going to get to the juggernaut of leadership, which is vulnerability. Being able to be confident in your vulnerability, being able to be confident in the gifts that you bring to the party, and being able to promote yourself.
Exactly.
That's the winning combination. And that's really what I'm out to help people do.
Yeah, I love that. And yes, and also tell me, Lydia, how do you help women find their voice? That is something that for me, as growing up Latina in our culture, we're like, in a way, it's like, no, don't say that, that's inappropriate, or like just stop crying, or just like, you're okay, like we're like, in a way, we have to be strong, like, but yet that keeps us stuck, and that limits us from really expressing and feeling and processing. So tell me, how do you help women find their voice, especially when it comes to the corporate world, that they have to really stand in their voice, their trust, their intuition?
Yeah. Well, I work in 3 blocks, 3 chunks, 3 sessions, so to speak. And in the first session, we go in and we identify the blocks that are holding them back. And so, everybody brings an enormous amount to the party. Yet, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or, kind of what is your family setup. But really getting in there and identifying the root cause of the blocks and working with those in the first session. So it's really kind of a beginning, middle, and an end process, where we have to understand what the issue is, or what the issues are. And you're not going to get that in regular talk therapy the same way you're going to get it with using RTT or hypnotherapy protocols. So when we get into kind of understanding what the pattern is, we can dislodge that and allow the client to really see and understand what has been going on in the background most of their life, probably, and where those self-limiting beliefs come from. And then so after session 1, we'll go into session 2, which is really kind of like, okay, now that you really have understood this and we've worked to retrain your mind out of those particular patterns, what is it that you really want to see happening? And this is kind of the middle ground training. This is, understanding, after session 1, where are the open issues still? Where is he getting stuck? And that's really kind of bringing somebody along to kind of an intermediate level where they're feeling greater levels of trust, but this is going on, or they didn't use their voice, but they understand why, and really kind of pushing the understanding of what's going on. Sometimes in the first session, when you're releasing a lot of the blocks, that opens a lot of space and energy, but then they'll get into a particular new situation. and all these triggers are coming at them, and they know their triggers. They're like, okay, we use that greater level of awareness to then decouple even further from the issues that continue to hold them back. You know, you and I both know rapid transformational therapy is so enlightening when you can really understand, like, oh my gosh, is that it? Is that what's been holding me back for the last 30 years? And you're kind of, yeah. You know, but it's really so embracing around just the compassion we have to hold for everybody's journey. I tell people I'm working with, look, 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion buckets of stuff. You're going to be able to now work yourself free from that, you know, because this is a breakthrough protocol. So then after the third session, and we create an audio recording that's, you know, custom to everybody's situation. And people listen to that audio recording once a day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to repattern in their mind. The third session really is, okay, who do you want to be? You know, what kind of leader do you want to be? Who are you as a person? And really understanding what might be, you know, kind of the remainders of things that might be in the way, but really then training their mind. You know, hypnosis is used by some of the most powerful CEOs. It's kind of, again, like I said, it's a little bit the secret weapon, but when you've worked with enough coaches and anything like that, they, you know, Tony Robbins, everybody, mindset. But, you know, the other thing that is really important when you're going through this is to know, look, Olympic athletes use this all the time. So what we're really doing is we're creating a new set of beliefs and a new set of pictures to train the mind on. And what you set your mind toward, you know, it's like getting all those children, all those thoughts, getting them all marching in the same direction, and you're off and running. So that's really kind of how I do it. It's like, get rid of the blocks, work to stabilize and harmonize, and then 3 out of the gate. What do they want to do? And just follow them from there.
Yeah, and I love that because, yes, I know that in the first session, there's so much that will come up to the surface, where a lot of the times, like, wait, the presenting problem was this, right?
Yeah.
But then there's something else that the subconscious mind brought up that also needed to be, you know, seen, right? Yeah, they were able to kind of like see, like reframe it. What is this belief that the subconscious mind wants you to see? So that way you're able to release and then reprogram to the direction that you want to go, right? Because it's like what you focus on, you attract, but sometimes we're attracting the wrong things because we're not focusing on the on what we actually want.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, for women, you know, what one of the things too is to build awareness around, you know, the good, bad, and the ugly around, you know, kind of what we're up against. You know, I shared some research with you around, they have done research on people favor lower voices, you know, be it either with politicians, they'll go after somebody with a lower voice. Women just have a higher frequency because we don't get bathed with testosterone, you know, that lowers our voice. So maybe, Marcy, we should be talking all the time. But there's that, and there's the inherent bias that's in the collective conscious about women may be rated for, you know, top leadership, you know, when they're getting scored, but when they're getting rated for, you know, potential, which is leadership potential, there's just like they score lower, you know, again. And so there are these inherent biases, and it goes across, of course, not only women, but as you say, you know, kind of Hispanics and you know, being of color, of different races. And so I call it, there are a lot of headwinds out there. But if you're solid in who you are and you're happy and you're able to freely express yourself and feel confident, you will attract to you also the work that you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that because honestly, it is work, but it is rewarding work, right? Like, you know, like, because a lot of times there's always like, oh, like, I know that for myself, I was always like, no, I gotta think positive and be the light and all these things. But yet I was drowning myself because I did not wanted to see the things of myself that I needed to see in order for me to be a higher version of myself, in order for me to work through those things that were holding me down so I could be more balanced, more integrated, right?
Yes.
And it's not easy to kind of like go back and see like, oh wow, like I've been holding on to this belief because this and this happened, and all this time I had it in my subconscious mind, but yet, like it's not an easy work, but once you put in the work, oh my goodness, it's so, oh my God, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling of like, hey, I didn't think I could get this far, but look at me now. The work was worth it, right?
Right. Well, and when it comes to work, let's be clear about what it is. It's certainly, putting the time in around the sessions. They're 2 hours plus often, but that's, again, when it comes to having the dialogue, but it really is most beneficial for somebody who wants to change.
Exactly.
Because, no one's going to really change until they gather the energy to push through. The moment you decide to change, Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. The moment you make that conscious decision to change, it creates a burst of energy and you will do what it takes. And, so in our realm here with rapid transformational therapy, I see it as a partnership, because the person has to be willing to not only show up and be able to look at kind of what's going on, they need to commit to listening to the audio recordings. Because again, I liken it to people saying, look, you've got like a dirt road with really deep ruts in your mind around this issue. Your brain has 90 billion neurons in it. There is opportunity for all sorts of connection, holographic and otherwise. However, what we're going to do is we're going to unwind this particular situation for you so you can understand it, but you have to create a new neural pattern. So this old pattern might never go away. It might be there, but you're going to create a new neural pattern and things are going to shift. And I said, and it's kind of like if all of a sudden one day you were to buy a blue car and you're looking around, oh my God, everybody's buying a blue car.
Yeah.
That's because your brain has shifted in that way. Yeah. Well, when you listen to the recording over 21 days, whatever that issue is, just all of a sudden goes away. You don't even, you're going to look around and you're like, where did that ever go? How did I ever feel that way? Yeah. So it's this new neural path, and that's the work. So you have to, the client has to be willing and really want to listen to the recording, or what we call as, sometimes even a meditation, but that will really give them the shift that they're looking for.
Yes, and you explain it beautifully again. I love that explanation because, it's like the shift in energy and the shift in focus. It's like, wow, like what just happened, right? But then, it's like putting in the energy to want to commit to change.
Yes.
And I think that for me, I hit that point where it's like, okay, no more. I can't do this to myself anymore. I have to, I have to kind of like dig myself out. Because I feel like in this space where I just feel so I just feel like I just so stuck, right?
Yeah.
Even though I read so many personal development books and listened to all these, podcasts, which were amazing, and I got so much insight from it. But that's conscious level, right? That's conscious level understanding. But once I started working more in my subconscious mind, reprogramming, what I was learning with my conscious mind made so much sense. So much that I was able to apply, like, oh, that makes sense. That's what he said that. That's, you have more understanding, like Marissa Peer says, understanding is power, right? And understanding in hypnosis, it's very powerful, right? Because you're in a very relaxed state where the monkey mind is not like thinking about what am I going to make for dinner or all these things. You're just really focused in your internal self.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I share with people that our conscious mind is only 5% of our mind. Our subconscious mind is 95% of what's going on up here. And it's a 24/7 record of everything we've experienced in our lifetime, even, the last 3 months in utero. So there is a lot of memory. There is a lot of automatic programming. I mean, you also as a trainer, know how hard it is to create new habits relative to, walking is a learned habit. I mean, it is a rule of efficiency in the way that the mind is built. Once you learn something, you don't have to learn it again. You just keep going at it. But if it becomes a bad habit, breaking it is also, kind of challenging, and consciously breaking it is even more difficult, I have found. So, working with the mind, and I also share with people, particularly because the subconscious mind is the mind of the feelings. That's where we're going. That, your heart and your intestinal area are also brains. You have 40,000 brain cells in your heart plexus, and then the guts are another brain, and this is both intuition and feeling coming from these different centers. And so you're bringing in so much information that is coming into your body, not consciously, it's just being interpreted. We're amazing creatures. I mean, the gray matter is the most brilliant supercomputer on the planet. Nobody's ever been able to replace it. I mean, that's what we're working with. That's the black box. So there's a huge opportunity to get in there and make it work for us.
Exactly. And I love that because, as a trainer also, like one of the hardest things is people to change their lifestyle, right? Because it's like, there's the exercise component, right? But then there's like the nutrition component of like, they're used to eating a certain way and being a certain way. And it's like, you're also forming a new identity, right?
Yeah.
In yourself, like a healthier version of yourself, which takes work to do, right? To reprogram, to change habits and food intakes and all that stuff. And I think that that's one of all the reasons why I also decided to do this, to help further, right? And and see where those limited beliefs of why they self-sabotage or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and I have found, that it really does come down to a sense of self-worth, be it either, whatever realm that we end up trying to direct change toward or in, I guess is another way to look at it. It really comes down to our sense of self and self-worth as was decided by the mind of a child. And that is, that's really tricky. But I think at the end of the day, people, once they understand so much more about how their beliefs are formed when they're younger, their self-compassion for what they've gone through and what they, learn to do or say or be just to get by, also gives them the power to continue to jump forward. It really is a whole new level of understanding, in this particular work. But habits are tough. I think the other thing that I cue people onto is the environment in which they work, because as I'm sure, you're working with somebody both on their physical training, their nutrition, and kind of their lifestyle, et cetera. But it also comes down to controlling the environment in which they're based in. Bruce Lipton is a PhD, and he's really the father of the science of epigenetics, which proved that it is the cell lining and structure around a cell that actually determines DNA expression. So it's the environment of that cell that will get DNA to specifically fire. So being very careful about your environment, both mentally and emotionally and physically, also part of undergoing really big change. And, I think for women who are, kind of so stressed out, and we cued on this earlier, their physical environment is always under pressure. And to be under that much pressure, well, the headline is how to shrink your brain. Stay under enormous pressure for months. That's what happens to your brain. And the reason is because when you live in constant fight or flight, the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and, your adrenals, which controls the cortisol, will just fire automatically. And just, cortisol is inflammation. It has a purpose. You've got blood running to, your extremes in your fatty tissues just because you're supposed to be fleeing from a tiger or freezing, or holding on. But your prefrontal cortex over time, and they've proven it with women that have been in, long-term abusive relationships, even, you lose the ability to think. Your logical mind starts getting very cloudy, and they've shown a shrinking brain from this ongoing long-term abuse. And so, you want to really be at the front of the class and be a leader. You have to know how to keep yourself calm, which also means you have to understand what's making you afraid. And that, again, for women, that goes back centuries. I mean, there's just a lot of programming, but you can change that. But I think to really show up at 100%, you have to kind of get beyond what is triggering, your nervous system. And that takes practice, that takes tools, that takes understanding, that takes skills. But at the end of the day, you're just really protecting your health. And so that's a large part of it. That was a large part of my own journey. I got really strapped out, toward the end of when I was working in corporate, and I got physically ill. So, again, I'm very careful to make sure people understand that piece as well. My daughter suffers with anxiety a little bit, and working with her, on box breathing and how to really understand what we know as looping thoughts and that sort of thing. And just, it's also a lot of education.
Exactly, it is. And that is just so powerful because, how you explained it, because I know also as a mom, when I've been in a situation where I'm so stressed out, I have past situations where my hair has fallen. I cannot be present with my kids. I cannot be the mom that I want to be for them because of all the stress that is going on in my system, in my nervous system. And I have lived that experience for many years. This is not the mom I want to be. I don't want to. I want to be present. I want to be healthy. I want to be in tune with them and pay attention to what they're saying. And that's a very important component when you mentioned being able to just know where that comes from. Where that trigger comes from. That's bringing so much stress, right?
Yeah, very much so. I think, it's one thing to say, oh, I'm flying across the country and I got 5 hours of sleep and I've got to go into this presentation. And then we've got the meeting with the stockholders and
Yeah.
Okay. How's that working for you in the long run? I think we all have to understand we've got to make it through bursts of energy, but being aware of what that is doing to us allows us to create space for the recovery. And I think with women, we're never allowing space for the recovery. It's not okay to take care of ourselves in the way that, a lot of other, let's just say, people find ways to take care of themselves. But I think sometimes you have to get really deliberate, and you have to sometimes almost, just walk away from people that aren't going to like you very much. And that's too bad. It really is knowing that. For me, part of this journey is understanding that one of the keys to success is knowing how to love yourself just the way you are. And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's not letting anybody get in to your head, not letting anybody, get into your energy field, being able to do the things that are important to you and, not serve other people's agendas. And that's not as easy as it seems. It is not easy as it seems. It's always an aspiration, but it's really seeing somebody that's very centered
Yeah.
you know, and in their energy is a very powerful thing. I think women can have a very strong, quiet presence, and feel very secure, and they'll be able to get to where they want to go and bring a lot of people with them.
I love that. Yes. And yes, like you mentioned, just being centered, secure about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're quiet, you could bring so much presence, right, to a room
That's
because
right.
you're by yourself. You're sure of your self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very powerful in itself.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. I love that. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think also when it comes to being comfortable around men, I think, you know, women all have their own, you know, strengths and weaknesses when it comes to being around men, and what they think men want to hear and see, you know, in different environments can be confusing
Yeah.
to people. And I think, you know, there are ways where women have learned to be master manipulators just to get what they want. And that's always, you know, that's not a long-term recipe for success, even though, you know, in this day and age, maybe everybody's a manipulator, but it gets more to, you know, really being able to get to where you want without having to engage in manipulation. And I find the people that are the master manipulators, be it the narcissists and the sociopaths and stuff like that, that's some of it is what happens to them as children, but they've learned how to get what they want without much honesty. And so
Yeah.
part of this too is it's like, how honest do you really want to be, you know,
Yeah.
as you're going along? And I find people that really are interested in authenticity and honesty, they're probably not going to come our way. You know, they just don't want to know. It's like, I don't want to know. But
Yeah.
I think others that really want to be honest and be okay, be it,
Yeah.
you know, they're dressed to the nines and at the water cooler and just doing their thing, or, you know, I think there's just an opportunity for to almost by example lead the men and saying, look, here I am, you know, here I am, and this is it, you know, and there's just a lot going on behind the scenes, you know, with society when it comes to those dynamics. But I think, you know, in doing this work and trying to help women be better leaders, you know, I always tell them they may not like you, but they
Yeah.
will respect you
And
because you respect yourself.
I
And
love.
you can respect yourself, you know, you're very solid no matter what comes. We can't, as Marissa says, the only thing we can control are our thoughts.
Exactly.
And managing those well is important to everybody.
Oh, beautifully said. I love that. Yes. What a great message. And that leads me to ask you, like, what advice will you give to women that just graduated college, they got their degrees, and they're outgoing in the corporate world or outgoing for their career, and they're scared, they're starting, they don't know what to expect? What advice do you give to those women to just really feel, integrated, to be, to feel centered and to trust themselves, because it could be a very scary world out there.
It can be very scary when you're first starting because you're learning,
Yeah,
and you need to pay close attention, and you worry that, you know, you're going to do something wrong. um, I would say, you know, I would say perspective is going to be a part of your performance. Being able to understand that nobody's going to be getting it right, that
yeah,
participation is really important, but also being able to find a mentor is always, that is the biggest gift, even if it's just talking to somebody once a month over coffee and just saying, you know, what about this, what about that, and getting your questions answered. But when it comes to being confident, I think it's really kind of where are they coming from. You know, if they are introverted and stuff like that, I think, you know, introverts can rely a lot on being the expert and stuff like that, and that's very important. So I think, you know, find the area that you're good at, what it is that you do, and it's not always the position you're going to play, but find what it is that you're good at, and then kind of say, hey, you know what? I really did this today and I did that. And if you can talk to people about 3 things you did well every week, you're
Mhm.
going to strike up conversations and find opportunities coming your way that wouldn't otherwise be there. And being able to promote yourself at work is like one of the missing links in the track. Women don't do that very well.
Mm.
And so it's really, I think, also maintaining a very good sense of humor
Yeah.
and understanding, yes, there is an old boys club. There always will be an old boys club. But
Yeah.
knowing that what you're doing is not only, I'm sure, doing very well in a performance situation, but learning to promote yourself and learning to understand with confidence that it's okay to just be who you are.
Mm.
And when you're looking around yourself and women are constantly comparing themselves to others, know that that's a trap.
Yeah.
And so, going forward and finding yourself in situations where you can raise your hand, or you can make a presentation, or you can run the checks to the bank, or whatever it is that keeps you out on the front learning, is really just a great way to kind of demonstrate interest at the beginning of your career. When it comes to, and people that are very gifted and talented will rise pretty quickly. They'll go through manager and they'll get to director, and then the squeeze starts to happen. That's where I was talking about the squeeze, because you'll be in your mid 30s and you'll be thinking, oh my gosh, I did great and I just got this promotion and now I've got a 3-year-old and I have to kind of get a nanny because I got to start flying around the country, and oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. And that's where you find your limiting beliefs. So just keep in mind, the higher you climb, the more you're going to come up against your limitations, and there are ways to get beyond them. And it's the people that can address their limitations, work on their limitations,
Yeah.
manage their mindset, are the people that make it through the chute.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, I agree with that 100%. And because, like, I mean, I wish I would have known that that
Me
piece.
too. Me too.
If my 18, 19-year-old self, would
Yeah.
have heard those words,
Yeah. Well,
but it's,
that's why we're here, Marcy. Yep, that's why we're here. I wish I had me, 25 years ago. I really do, but here I am. And I think, everything lines up for a reason,
yeah,
right? In terms of when things happen. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to working with a lot of women and really and busting them through and getting those limitations out of the way.
yeah, yeah. Because like you mentioned, that the higher that you climb, the more limited beliefs you will find. And I have found that, like, when I started just going solo, my own business, I quit the gym. I said I'm just gonna go solo. And that's when, oh my goodness, this year has been so challenging, in the fact that a lot of limiting beliefs kept creeping up on me, but been working through those.
Yeah.
And I know that you have helped me also. I have had a session with you, and it was it was amazing.
Yeah.
So and I know that there's a lot of things that 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 it was made aware of, and I'm gonna share like how it was, like I mentioned to you that I felt stuck, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, like, kind of like, didn't know how to get unstuck. And one of the sessions, I mean, in one of the scenes going back, I was in a box, and I
Yes,
couldn't get myself out of the box.
that's right. That's right. I said, what are you seeing right now? And you're like, I don't see anything. I'm like, that's okay. So, and then you're like, wait, I'm in a box. I said, oh, there you go. Is that why you're stuck? And I think, the thing that's so great, and thank you for sharing that, because the mind speaks in metaphors a
Yeah.
lot of times. And maybe just for your audience, and you can go ahead and do this. Do you want to just kind of take somebody through the process of a rapid transformational therapy session?
Yeah. We could
So they
definitely.
know what we're talking about with scenes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So in rapid transformation, we go back to the scene where it has all to do with the root of the presenting problem. right?
Mhm.
And we go back to 3 scenes, sometimes 4, if we have to dig a little bit deeper. And that is when you're we're just speaking directly to the subconscious mind, which is the emotional mind.
Yeah.
And that's when Lydia, you took me back, and that scene of the box of just me feeling trapped in the box came up. And the reason why was because I was just so afraid of being seen, just so I was trapped in this box because I was not moving forward because I was afraid of being seen and putting myself out there. So that's what was keeping me stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you want to go on the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you go through 3 scenes, and then we interpret the scenes and we work with the theme around those scenes. And it really is up to the client to put the pieces together, because that's so much more impactful, asking the client to figure it out. And then we go through some other things, typically working with the inner child that is possibly carrying those wounds from having created those beliefs that have caused them so much pain. The younger version of you, the inner child, and then coming out and letting a lot of that stuff go. We really re-empower people. We get rid of those beliefs, and then leave them with their recording, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that is just, and it's a 2-hour session, but it's just like so impactful. Like, it's just like you're going through this journey, and like the client always has the answer. We always have the answer within us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we just don't want to see it, or something we don't know how to get it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And again, I really contend that, RTT is really a secret weapon for a lot of people that want to get to these limiting beliefs. They really want to change. They want to excel. They want to live differently. And, within 3 really good sessions, massive shifts can occur. It doesn't always have to be massive. I mean, the mind is very literal. It's very, very sweet sometimes and simplistic. It can get stuck on one word.
Yeah.
But again, when you're in that very vulnerable state, in 0 to 7, our mind is still very plastic.
Yeah.
We absorb so much. We're basically in a semi-hypnotic state during those years because we have to learn so much to survive on the planet.
Yeah.
So it's really wonderful way to bring forward a lot of things that can shift us quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. And yes, because like even like for example, like the session that I had with you,
Mm-hmm.
after a while, it's like I started to get more answers, and I started to get directed to like, okay, how can I feel more confident to be seen? How can I speak more confidently? And then you start to find answers, and those answers are there, but it's just like redirecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always, like where I'll be in a state of feeling comfortable to be seen, and putting more social media posts out there, more video, more like maybe
Go, Marcy!
Go, Marcy! Right? Maybe even speaking in front of audiences, who knows?
Yeah.
But that just opens up the door for more possibilities, and to build that confidence within yourself to make it happen, not just sitting there like, oh, if I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. It's just in there, but it's not coming out in action, releasing. So
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I love working with you as well. And I'm pretty sure we went back to a scene that I was at the dinner table with my family. I'm like, what happened? Why does this keep coming up? I was a little 4-year-old,
Yeah.
at a dinner table. Oh my goodness me. But you were so intuitive, and the way that you just unwound that, I've worked on, similar topics, continuing to break through my limiting beliefs and stuff like that. But you kind of took me in a direction I'd never been before around kind of my self-worth, and we all have limiting beliefs, that's just part of the programming. So I really love, and we were laughing pretty hard during my session. And I think that is something that, people should know, is that this doesn't have to be all, heavy duty, tears and Sturm und Drang and, and all this other stuff. People will come onto scenes and just start laughing hysterically, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing that. You and I were laughing pretty hard too. So it's very meaningful work. And I'm happy to share this trail with you. Thank you for including me today.
Of course. Oh my goodness. Thank you for bringing so much to the table and so much insight and so much understanding. I had such a wonderful time.
Yeah, good. Awesome.
Is there anything else you want to share before we
Yeah, well, I think you're going to post your links if people are interested in a session with me regarding career and work and speaking up, most certainly, and finding your voice. You can reach me, Lydia, at lydiahatton.com. My website is lydiahatton.com, and you can punch a button to do a discovery call if you want to learn more. And then my social media is also listed there as well. At Lydia Hatton MBA is my handle.
Perfect. And I'll make sure that I'll post it in the podcast notes, so that way they have your website, your Instagram, they can reach out to you.
Good. Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
Lindsay.
you so much, Lydia. This has been amazing.
Great. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.